For nearly a century, the Bermuda Triangle has captured the imagination of millions around the world. It is a place where stories of vanished ships and missing airplanes have inspired books, movies, documentaries, and endless conspiracy theories. Some believe powerful magnetic forces confuse navigation systems. Others claim alien spacecraft are responsible. Some even suggest the lost city of Atlantis lies beneath the waves, hiding technology beyond human understanding. The stories are fascinating. Entire crews disappearing without sending a distress call. Aircraft vanishing from radar under clear skies. Rescue missions that never return. The Bermuda Triangle has become one of the most famous unsolved mysteries on Earth. But what if the mystery was never as mysterious as we believed? What if decades of sensational headlines, misunderstood accidents, and human mistakes created a legend far greater than reality? Today, a growing number of scientists believe the Bermuda Triangle is not a supernatural hotspot at all. Instead, they argue that nearly every famous disappearance can be explained through weather, navigation errors, ocean currents, and simple probability. One of the strongest voices supporting that conclusion is Australian scientist Dr. Carl Kruszelnicki. After reviewing historical records from the United States Coast Guard, Lloyd's of London, and decades of accident reports, he reached a surprising conclusion. The Bermuda Triangle is not statistically more dangerous than any other heavily traveled section of the world's oceans. If that is true, then why has the legend survived for so long? To answer that question, we need to go back to where the story truly began. Contrary to popular belief, sailors from the age of exploration were not terrified of a cursed triangle in the Atlantic. The legend did not exist for centuries. In fact, the phrase Bermuda Triangle was not even widely known until the second half of the 20th century. Everything changed in 1950 when a newspaper article highlighted several mysterious disappearances in the Western Atlantic. A few years later, writer Vincent Gaddis published an article describing a triangular area stretching from Miami to Bermuda and Puerto Rico. He called it the Deadly Bermuda Triangle. The idea quickly spread. Readers were fascinated by the possibility that a hidden force existed in one of the busiest regions of the Atlantic Ocean. Then, in 1974, author Charles Berlitz published a best-selling book, simply titled The Bermuda Triangle. The book became an international phenomenon. Millions of copies were sold around the world. It presented extraordinary stories of disappearing ships, unexplained aircraft losses, mysterious lights, strange magnetic forces, and civilizations hidden beneath the sea. For many readers, the book blurred the line between documented history and speculation. The legend exploded. Television documentaries repeated the stories. Hollywood embraced the mystery. Magazine articles added dramatic details. Each retelling made the Bermuda Triangle seem even more terrifying. Few people questioned whether the stories had been carefully verified. But while the myth was growing larger, another researcher was quietly investigating the original records. His name was Larry Kusha. Instead of relying on rumors or sensational reports, Kusha examined official documents, Coast Guard files, weather reports, newspaper archives, and accident investigations. What he discovered challenged almost everything people thought they knew. Some ships reported as missing had actually been found. Some accidents happened hundreds of miles outside the Bermuda Triangle. Other disappearances occurred during hurricanes. Yet later accounts conveniently ignored the dangerous weather. Several famous stories had become exaggerated with each retelling. According to Kusha, many of the so-called mysteries disappeared once the original evidence was examined. His conclusions were controversial. Believers accused him of destroying one of history's greatest mysteries. Scientists praised his careful research. Even today, the debate continues. Was the Bermuda Triangle truly a place of impossible disappearances? Or was it simply a legend built from incomplete information and decades of sensational storytelling? To answer that question, we have to examine the cases that made the Bermuda Triangle famous, and no case is more legendary than the disappearance of Flight 19. That single event transformed an ordinary military training exercise into one of the greatest mysteries in aviation history. In the next chapter, we will reconstruct Flight 19 minute by minute using official records, pilot communications, and modern analysis to understand what really happened on that December afternoon in 1945. On the afternoon of December 5th, 1945, 5 U.S. Navy TBM Avenger torpedo bombers lifted off from Naval Air Station Fort Lauderdale in Florida. The mission was routine. The Second World War had ended only a few months earlier, and the Navy was training a new generation of pilots using exercises that had been flown countless times before. The flight was known simply as Flight 19. Its assignment was straightforward. Fly east over the Atlantic, conduct simulated bombing practice, continue north, then turn west and return to base. The entire exercise was expected to last only a few hours. Leading the formation was Lieutenant Charles Taylor, a pilot with more than 2,500 hours of flight experience. At first glance, he appeared to be the ideal instructor, but there were warning signs before the aircraft ever left the runway. According to historical accounts, Taylor had asked to be relieved from the mission that day. His request was denied. Witnesses also recalled that he was flying without a wristwatch, an unusual decision for a navigator during a timed training exercise. No one imagined those small details would later become part of one of aviation's greatest mysteries. The weather was considered generally favorable when the bombers departed. Visibility was good, and nothing suggested the crews were about to disappear forever. The first part of the mission unfolded exactly as planned. The pilots reached their bombing range and successfully completed their training runs. Everything seemed normal. Then, sometime after completing the exercise, radio transmissions began to reveal a growing sense of confusion. Lieutenant Taylor reported that he believed his compasses were malfunctioning. He told the other pilots he could no longer determine his exact position. The problem quickly became more serious. Taylor became convinced that the formation was somewhere above the Florida Keys. If that had been true, the correct decision would have been to fly northeast toward the mainland. But many historians believe Taylor had made a critical mistake. Evidence suggests the aircraft were actually flying east of Florida near the Bahamas. If that assessment is correct, then every decision Taylor made afterward moved the squadron farther away from safety. Several students questioned their leader over the radio. One pilot reportedly suggested flying west. In that region, flying west would almost certainly lead back to the Florida coastline. But military discipline required the trainees to follow their commanding officer. Taylor continued searching for land that never appeared. Minute after minute, the fuel tanks grew lighter. Ground controllers attempted to help. Radio operators urged Flight 19 to turn west. Signals were weak. Communications faded in and out. No one on the ground could determine the exact location of the aircraft. As daylight disappeared, weather conditions began to deteriorate. The Atlantic became rough. Clouds increased. Strong winds complicated navigation even further. Flying over open water at low altitude and fading light was already dangerous. Now the pilots also faced the possibility of running out of fuel hundreds of miles from land. The final radio messages reflected growing desperation. One transmission suggested the pilots were preparing to ditch their aircraft into the ocean once fuel was exhausted. Then the voices stopped. Flight 19 vanished. No distress beacon. No confirmed wreckage. No survivors. The disappearance shocked the Navy. Within minutes, a massive search operation was launched. Ironically, the rescue mission produced another tragedy that would deepen the Bermuda Triangle legend. A Martin PBM Mariner rescue aircraft carrying 13 crew members took off to search for Flight 19. Only a short time after departure, it also disappeared. For many people, this second loss seemed impossible to explain. Two separate groups of military aircraft had vanished on the same day in nearly the same area. The story quickly became the foundation of the Bermuda Triangle mystery, but decades later, investigators reached a far more ordinary conclusion. The PBM Mariner had earned a dangerous reputation among Navy crews. The aircraft carried large amounts of aviation fuel and had experienced several catastrophic explosions in the past. On the evening Flight 19 disappeared, a merchant ship reported seeing a large explosion over the ocean, followed by burning fuel on the water. Many aviation historians believe the rescue aircraft likely exploded in midair due to a fuel vapor ignition, completely unrelated to Flight 19. As for the 5 Avengers, modern researchers point to a combination of navigation error, human decision-making, worsening weather, and fuel exhaustion. None of those explanations sound as dramatic as alien spacecraft or mysterious energy fields. Yet together, they match the available evidence far better than any supernatural theory ever proposed. Still, Flight 19 was only one chapter in the Bermuda Triangle story. Another disappearance would prove even more haunting. Unlike the missing bombers, this vessel was enormous. It carried more than 300 people. It never sent a distress signal. And more than a century later, no one knows exactly where it rests beneath the Atlantic Ocean. The ship was called USS Cyclops, and its disappearance remains one of the greatest unsolved losses in the history of the United States Navy. On March 4, 1918, the USS Cyclops departed the island of Barbados on what should have been an uneventful voyage back to the United States. The massive Navy cargo ship was carrying more than 300 sailors, passengers, and crew members, along with thousands of tons of manganese ore, a critical material used in steel production during World War I. At nearly 550 feet long, the Cyclops was one of the largest ships in the U.S. Navy. It was considered reliable, heavily built, and fully capable of crossing the Atlantic. No one expected it to disappear. After leaving Barbados, the ship was scheduled to arrive in Baltimore. It never did. No distress call was received. No wreckage was ever found. No lifeboats were recovered. The ship simply vanished. More than 300 people disappeared with it, making it the single largest non-combat loss of life in U.S. naval history. The disappearance stunned military officials. Search operations were launched across the Atlantic, but every effort ended the same way. Nothing. Not a single confirmed piece of evidence revealed what had happened. Over the decades, countless theories emerged. Some claimed the ship had been attacked by a German submarine during World War I, but German naval records showed no evidence of such an attack. Others believed the Cyclops may have suffered a catastrophic structural failure. The vessel had been carrying an extremely heavy cargo of manganese ore. If the weight shifted during rough seas, the ship could have become unstable within minutes. Several historians also noted that one of the Cyclops engines had mechanical problems before the final voyage. Operating with only one functioning engine would have reduced the captain's ability to maneuver through severe weather. Another possibility involved the sea itself. The Atlantic between the Caribbean and the American East Coast is one of the most unpredictable regions on Earth. Powerful storms can develop rapidly. Towering waves can reach heights capable of overwhelming even large vessels. Modern oceanographers have identified another phenomenon that may help explain some maritime disasters. They are known as rogue waves. Unlike ordinary waves, rogue waves appear suddenly. They can rise more than 100 feet above the surrounding sea and strike with enormous force. For centuries, sailors described these giant walls of water, but many scientists dismissed the stories as exaggerations. That changed in 1995. An offshore research platform in the North Sea recorded a rogue wave measuring more than 80 feet high. For the first time, scientists had direct evidence that these monsters of the ocean were real. Since then, satellite observations have confirmed that rogue waves occur far more often than previously believed. Computer simulations show that under the right conditions, multiple wave systems can combine into a single enormous wall of water, capable of severely damaging or even sinking large ships. While there is no proof that a rogue wave destroyed the USS Cyclops, researchers now recognize that such events are possible in the Atlantic Ocean. Another important factor is the Gulf Stream. This powerful ocean current flows north along the eastern coast of the United States at speeds that can exceed 4 miles per hour. If a ship sinks in this region, debris may be scattered across hundreds of miles within a short period of time. Floating evidence can disappear before rescue teams even reach the last reported position. Heavy wreckage sinks quickly into ocean depths exceeding 20,000 feet. Recovering a ship from those depths is an enormous challenge, even with today's advanced technology. This helps explain why so many disappearances appear more mysterious than they actually are. When investigators cannot locate wreckage, the human imagination often fills the empty space with extraordinary explanations. Yet scientists continue to examine another unusual possibility buried beneath the seafloor. Deep below parts of the Atlantic lie frozen deposits of methane trapped inside crystalline ice. These deposits are called methane hydrates. Some researchers have suggested that under rare conditions, methane gas could suddenly escape from the seabed. If enough gas rises to the surface, it creates a column of bubbles that reduces the density of the surrounding water. In theory, a ship floating above such a release could lose buoyancy and sink much faster than expected. Laboratory experiments have demonstrated that small model ships can indeed sink when enough gas bubbles reduce the water's ability to support them. However, there is an important limitation. No scientific evidence has ever confirmed that a methane hydrate eruption has caused the disappearance of any ship or aircraft inside the Bermuda Triangle. Most geologists consider the idea physically possible, but extremely unlikely. It remains an interesting hypothesis rather than an established explanation. As science continued replacing myths with evidence, one final question remained unanswered. If the Bermuda Triangle is no more dangerous than other oceans, why do so many people still believe it hides supernatural forces? The answer may have less to do with the Atlantic Ocean itself and far more to do with the power of stories, media, and the human fascination with the unknown. In the final chapter, we will separate myth from reality and examine whether the Bermuda Triangle mystery has truly been solved or whether a few unanswered questions still remain beneath the waves. For more than 70 years, the Bermuda Triangle has stood as one of the world's most famous mysteries. Its reputation has survived generations of books, television specials, documentaries, and Hollywood films. Every new disappearance seemed to reinforce the belief that something extraordinary existed between Florida, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico. But when scientists and investigators returned to the original evidence, the picture began to change. The first major breakthrough came from researcher Larry Kusha. Instead of relying on dramatic stories, he examined original Coast Guard reports, Navy investigations, weather records, newspaper archives, and insurance documents. His findings were surprising. Several famous disappearances had been exaggerated over time. Some incidents occurred hundreds of miles outside the Bermuda Triangle. Others happened during hurricanes or severe storms, details that later retellings often ignored. A few stories that appeared in popular books could not even be verified through official records. The mystery had grown larger than the facts. More recently, Australian scientist Dr. Carl Kruselnicki reached a similar conclusion. After reviewing accident statistics from the United States Coast Guard and Lloyd's of London, he found no evidence that ships or aircraft disappear more frequently inside the Bermuda Triangle than in other heavily traveled regions of the world. That conclusion may disappoint those hoping for a supernatural explanation, but it raises an even more interesting question. Why does the legend refuse to disappear? Part of the answer lies in geography. The Bermuda Triangle sits in one of the busiest transportation corridors on Earth. Every year, thousands of commercial ships, private boats, cruise liners, military vessels, and passenger aircraft pass through the region. With so much traffic, accidents are inevitable. Even if the rate of accidents is completely normal, the total number will naturally appear larger than in quieter parts of the ocean. Nature also plays a powerful role. The Atlantic Ocean can change rapidly. Tropical storms develop with little warning. Powerful hurricanes sweep through the region every year. Towering waves, strong currents, sudden squalls, and poor visibility have challenged sailors for centuries. The Gulf Stream adds another layer of difficulty. Its powerful current can carry floating debris far from an accident site within hours. By the time rescue teams arrive, the evidence may already be scattered across hundreds of miles. If an aircraft crashes into deep water, the situation becomes even more difficult. Large sections of the Bermuda Triangle reach depths of more than 20,000 feet. Recovering wreckage from those depths remains one of the greatest challenges in ocean exploration. A missing aircraft or ship does not automatically mean something impossible has occurred. Sometimes the ocean simply keeps its secrets. That does not mean every case has been solved. The disappearance of USS Cyclops remains unexplained. No confirmed wreck has ever been found. Several smaller disappearances also lack enough evidence to determine exactly what happened. However, an unsolved case is not the same as proof of supernatural forces. History contains many mysteries that remain unanswered simply because evidence has been lost forever. Modern technology has transformed how investigators approach these events. Satellite navigation, advanced radar, weather forecasting, underwater drones, sonar mapping, and emergency locator beacons have dramatically reduced the number of unexplained disappearances. Many accidents that once would have become legends are now reconstructed in remarkable detail. The Bermuda Triangle itself has not changed. Our understanding of it has. Perhaps that is the greatest lesson of this story. Human beings are naturally drawn to mysteries. When evidence is missing, imagination often fills the empty space. A vanished ship becomes the work of mysterious forces. A navigation mistake becomes a supernatural event. A violent storm becomes a legend that lasts for generations. The Bermuda Triangle reminds us how easily myths can grow when fear, uncertainty, and incomplete information come together. It also reminds us that science is not about destroying wonder. Science replaces speculation with evidence while leaving room for questions that have not yet been answered. So, has the Bermuda Triangle finally been solved? The answer depends on what we mean by solved. There is no credible scientific evidence supporting aliens, Atlantis, mysterious energy fields, or supernatural forces operating in the region. Most famous disappearances can be explained by a combination of human error, severe weather, mechanical failure, powerful ocean currents, and the immense depth of the Atlantic. Yet a handful of individual cases remain incomplete because the ocean has never returned the evidence investigators needed. Perhaps the real mystery was never hidden beneath the waves. Perhaps it was hidden in the stories we chose to believe. And as long as the Atlantic Ocean continues to guard some of its deepest secrets, the legend of the Bermuda Triangle will almost certainly continue to capture the imagination of the world for generations to come.